You're listening to the Hello Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. Hello, 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 and welcome to the Hello Well with Danielle podcast. I'm your host, Danielle Washington, and you hear me talk all the time about creating this wellness revolution and us being free, but real check, we can't be free if you don't have financial liberation. And I'm going to be real honest right now, I don't have it. And that's why I brought on my guest today, Deborah Owens, who is America's wealth coach. She's also an amazing financial freedom fighter. And I love that she calls herself a financial freedom fighter. But what she says is that we as women of color are denied the American dream because of all these systematic barriers. But the reality is we don't even know what these barriers are. So it's really hard to get to that financial freedom, that financial liberation, and to that wellness if we don't even know. And that's why I wanted to come in here. And I know this conversation might be scary for some because talking about money is not something I like to always talk about. But starting the conversation, allow yourself to breathe in. And if you need to meditate before listening to this, give yourself that grace, because this information she is about to give is going to lead to that freedom. It's going to lead to that legacy that you may want to live. It may lead to that trip that you've been wanting to plan but didn't have the money for. So I hope you get this information. I know this is going to be an episode that you're going to listen to over and over again because the information is like gems. That's all I got to say. Hey, Deb, how are you this morning?
Oh, I'm great. And I am so excited to be here.
I love this conversation. I just want to get started right away because there's so many things I want to ask you, because I do feel that having financial liberation is the key to our wellness. And before we even get there, I just want to know, how did you become a financial freedom fighter? And I love that you call yourself
Financial freedom fighter. Well, really, it started, it really goes back to my mom. The story of how I became such an advocate for women and their financial wellness is that my mother, after 30 years of marriage, separated from my father. And we had, our lifestyles were middle class. And when my parents had just moved back to Hawaii, where one of my sisters was born, and my parents separated, and they were getting ready for retirement. And I was like, I'm the youngest in my family, so I was maybe 17 years old at the time. And I said to myself, when I saw how, now my father had to take care of two households, and I saw how my mother's standard of living changed, I said, I will always have a purse of my own. And so that really is the sort of origin of this whole need for me to want to be financially secure myself.
Yeah.
And then I never understood why I was so attracted to financial services.
Mm-hmm.
But when I wrote my first book, Confident Investing, a wealth building guide for women, it really caused me to reflect on that story and help me to understand what my own motivations are and why this is so important for me.
And one of the things I love that you say, or I don't love that you say it, but I want to kind of get down to why you say it, is you say that the American dream has been denied for Black women, Black and brown women, because of systematic barriers. Like, can you explain what those barriers are and why there is an urgency for financial liberation?
Well, a couple of things. So there are systemic barriers, and some of them are self-imposed. Okay, so from a systemic standpoint, if you think about the financial success roadmap that we were given, we were told go to college, get as much education as you can, that student loan debt was good debt, and then you get a house, and then you'll be able to save on your with mortgage interest. And the truth about wealth, all right, really is that's not how you build wealth. That is a middle class mindset, and that middle class mindset has us, just drowning in debt. In fact, if you look at the amount of debt that Black women are carrying, not only for themselves, but for their children,
Yeah.
because the other aspect of when I say part of it is self imposed, is for Black women, many of us are the first in our family to have achieved a certain degree of success and achievement, in terms of college, in terms of professional careers. Certainly, I was the first in my family. And as a result, we want that for our own children. And so we want to create this middle class nirvana. And unfortunately, it is causing us to make serious financial decisions that are putting us in financial jeopardy, where we're taking on, just egregious amounts of debt, personal plus loans to send our kids to Ivy League schools, and so on and so forth. And so I really am a counter to that. I mean, I know that it's challenging for the Black community when I say that the road to financial success is not taking on enormous amounts of student loan debt. Now, I don't for any reason want anyone to listen to this podcast and think that I am saying that you don't want to get a college degree. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm
Yeah.
saying you want it to be affordable, and that you want to enroll your kids in the process. I mean, even knowing what I did, and we took out a 529 prepaid tuition program for our son. I invested for my daughter. They still had to come to the table with a certain, so whatever student loans that they could get, they had to take them out, because I really feel like you've got to have some skin in the game in order for you to really appreciate it. You cannot value what you did not earn.
No, that's right. And you brought up something that I'm like, what is she talking about? The 520 something, whatever. I'm like, what is that?
That's a college saving plan that
Okay.
allows you to put money in it, and it works like a kitty IRA, right? Only it's for not retirement but for college. So you can invest in this 529 college savings plan. It's simply an account. You can buy them through your state. And by the way, if someone wants to go to collegesavings.org, they can evaluate which plans work best for them. Not necessarily your state isn't always the best. And that money can grow. And if you use it toward college expenses, there's no taxable consequences on that gain. And so, I really am a proponent of, if you have children, do that immediately. Like, if you're planning a child, then the day they're born, you need to have a 529 plan.
Oh my God, that is so brilliant. I know that my parents, one of their goals has always been to save and provide money for my niece and nephews. And I know they've been doing this, but I don't think they're doing it where they're getting a tax, it's not being taxed money but it's money that's going for their college education. This is like, wow, information for me. I mean, I don't have kids, but I think that someone will benefit from just hearing that aspect of it all. Like for me as a Black woman, oh, I don't even know where to start. Like, because I feel like I have issues with money. And we've talked about this. And like, I run from you like there's no tomorrow. I see Deb and I'm like, ooh, squirrel. I'm like, ooh, oh, wait, someone calling me Michelle.
Kryptonite.
I'm like, run the other way. And it's not because I don't love you. And it's not that I don't know that you are speaking the truth and that there is an urgency behind this financial liberation that we all need. It just, the ideal of talking about it scares me. So how do you help someone like me who knows we need to be doing better, but is so fearful of facing what we don't know?
I'm so glad you said that, because we've had our largest growth in the Wealth of You community this year.
Yeah.
And what I learned from that was so counter to what I thought. And what I thought was that someone like Danielle won't want other people to know whatever financial shame or ignorance she's carrying. And so one-on-one coaching would be best. But what I learned after launching our first group program is that there is power and there is a liberation,
Yeah.
right, in community, because the most important thing you have to learn, Danielle, is that you're not alone,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody's got their own financial demons to deal with. And going back to systemics of it, the reason, and I've coached thousands of women now, the reason that you feel the way that you do is because in your formal education, this is the one thing that is never taught, and that is about the financial markets, investments, money, and how it works. How to build wealth is not taught, it is inherited, right? I want you to
Yeah.
get this. So if you don't have a family member, if you didn't come from wealth and a family office with a financial advisor, you know, you're a wealth manager, you're not going to be exposed to it because that's how you're taught, right? I mean, that is what was so profound when I kind of, what do I want to say? Like I, tripped into this Merrill Lynch office somehow. I had a friend refer me, and when I walked into that marble floored wood grain office, I wondered why I didn't know anything about it,
Yeah.
right? And so part of what you're feeling is shame because you feel like I should know this. I am college educated. I am a professional. I should know this. And so when you feel like you should know something, you don't even ask, because if you ask the question, then people are going to be like, you think people are going to say, oh, well, you don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
When in fact, most of them don't either. And so going back to my original point around what I learned was that liberation. One of the things that we really encourage in Wealthy You is for women to tell their stories. And so every week we have a Wednesday where everybody posts their wins. So it can be a little win. I paid off this credit card. I increased my 401k, because it is those small wins that other people say, oh my goodness, that's a win. Well, I've had a win like that. I can do that, right? And it's that momentum, that transparency that diminishes a lot of the shame, ignorance, and fear that people have. I mean, people sign up with me for private coaching, and it's like pulling teeth to have them schedule their first session, because they feel ashamed, or they feel like they should be further ahead. But the reality is that we are all starting from different places,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're all starting from different places, and that you have your own, what I call, power levers, acceleration levers that you can pull based on your own situation. And so, because everyone is different, when you identify what those are, man, we've had women go from negative 1,500 net worth to a half a million in a year. Why? Because they had the income, right? They just didn't know how to leverage it. We've had women go from 0 to 6 figures, negative $40,000 in debt to 6 figures in 18 to 2 years. So 18 months to 2 years. So the key is too much looking in the rear view mirror of financial regret. But guess what? That's not the direction you're going in when you get into Wealthy You. It is looking forward. It's no
Yeah.
looking back, is what do I need to do today?
And you talked about the key. What are other keys to Black women's wealth? Like, what are other things that would help, they're key to us gaining this wealth?
I love it. Because what I really created right at the beginning of COVID, I wrote a financial love letter to Black women. And if they go to my wealthofyou.com website, they can click on it.
And
And
I'll make
that
sure to also post it in the podcast show notes too. Then they get to
excellent.
beautiful letter.
Yes. And the point of that letter was, look, sis, you did everything you were supposed to do, but that financial success roadmap where we were given is obsolete. And I won't even say obsolete anymore. I'll say we were given the wrong navigation guide. We were taught how to become earners and not owners.
Wow. We taught how to become earners and not owners. That's deep.
Yeah, because what I mean by that is we were taught how to earn an income,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we pursued. And we felt like the more income we earned, the closer we would be to financial success. But what we weren't taught is how to turn that income into wealth. Okay, so how do you do that? You take the income, that portion of the income that you're receiving, and then you then invest it in assets that are then going to create the income. So that is the key. And so here's the thing that I learned this year after watching so many women accelerate so quickly was that the real asset is the knowledge of how to increase wealth, right?
Yeah.
The asset is the knowledge, and the knowledge is inherited. And so you have to gain that knowledge so that you can pay that inheritance for it. And so that you're teaching your nieces, your children, the system of how to create wealth. And that's how you create intergenerational wealth. And one of our members said it so poignantly in that her parents were real estate investors. And so she started investing in real estate while she was in college. She's had a phenomenal career, and now she has a huge real estate investment portfolio. How we met is she was too concentrated and she needed
Yeah.
to diversify. And so she became a client and I helped her build her investment portfolio. But one of the points she made was that she had a high risk tolerance, right? And the reason that she had a high risk tolerance is she never understood it, and it was always there since she was young, was because of her parents,
Mm-hmm.
right? So her parents invested in real estate. It was just something that you did. And so the most important thing you have to understand about wealth and intergenerational wealth is the confidence that it gives the person who's being exposed to it.
Yeah. And I think that also goes back to someone's money story. So I look back at my own situation. My parents were investing, didn't really know it, but I took my parents on a trip recently and they were talking about, I didn't even know my mom was in an investment group back in like the 80s. I'm like, didn't know about that. I thought you guys were just chit-chatting and gossiping. But she was in an investment group. Both of my parents do still currently invest. They've owned property. My first technical job is my family owned a cabin, and I would have to literally tell people about this cabin and give them the benefits behind it and tell them when it was available and everything like that. And so they were always business minded. My dad owned his own business when I was younger. My mom owned her own business when I was in college. Yet there was still this disconnect because the money story I was told, we have money, you have nothing.
Yes. And that is the point, right? That is another issue that we have in our families and
Mm-hmm.
in Black families is if someone in your family does have access to this information, typically they don't tell you for fear that you're going to, ask for something, right? The most important thing that you can do for your children is pass that knowledge on. Again, I want everybody listening to this to hear me. And that is that the most valuable asset is the knowledge of how to create wealth. And you can do that in a number of ways. Now, the way our system is set up in this country really is for business ownership, right? And so earner income, W 2 income, is taxed the highest, right? Whereas business income is taxed at the lowest rate. And there are two reasons why. Because W 2 income, your earner income, you don't get to write off your expenses, right? Whereas with your business income, you write off expenses and then you're taxed on the bottom line, right? With ordinary income, you're taxed on every dime. So just like we the rule of diversifying in terms of your investments, you must also diversify in terms of income. And that means you should have, you and so some people say, well, I don't want to be an entrepreneur. Well, you don't have to be. You could be a partner in a franchise, an LLC. You could be a limited partner. That will give you that ability. You can own real estate. Some people say, well, I don't want to own real estate because I don't want to be a landlord. You don't have to be a landlord. You could be a limited partner, a part of which will give you the ability to write off the depreciation, because that's the other assets are taxed more favorably than any other entity, right? So whether you're an LLC, whether you're a limited partner, that and real estate, my goodness, has so many benefits in that. If you own it in your family, it's the one thing that can pass on to the next generation that doesn't pay capital gains. I mean, you'd have to have more than I think now it's $12 million in estate for you to have. So that's why people pass on real estate, because it's one of the few. So one of the things that we just launched was what we call our legacy wealth. And so, once you build it, now you got to protect it and preserve it. And so I really wanted to expose um, women to the high net worth strategies that I was exposed to as a vice president with an investment company like
Yeah.
Fidelity, right? Like I dealt with high net worth clients, and they have tax advantage. They know how to shelter their income, completely legal, right? And they know how to understand risk. Wealthy people do almost the opposite of most people, right? Like the market is up really high. Trust and believe that wealthy people are taking some of those profits and putting it to the side so that when the market goes down, then they can buy,
Yeah.
investments at lower prices. And so it's just that knowledge, right? If we've never been exposed to it, of course we feel ashamed. But where would we learn it? Wealthy you, of course. That's why
And
I
I
got wealthy you.
and I love that I love that you are so focused and passionate about helping Black women and liberating them from this, financial barriers that we just don't know, that most of us don't even know that we're in a barrier. Most of us don't know anything about these taxes. Like we hear, on the news, like, oh, well, Trump gets away with all these different tax things. We're like, well, how does that happen? We just aren't giving access. And I do think access is such a huge part of that.
Huge, huge. It's everything,
Yeah.
right? So here's the other thing, and this is what I had to finally learn, and that is that it is the circle that you're surrounded with,
Yeah.
right? So how we met was, I said, hey, I got to scale this business. This can't be just a vocation. I have to model that of which I, you know, espouse,
Yeah.
right? So I had to get in a circle of other business owners who were scaling. Only 1% of Black businesses ever do $1 million in revenue, right? So when I wanted to do that, I had to move my circle. The same holds true of the circle if you want to change your socioeconomic condition, if you want to learn more than what you know, then you've got to put yourself around other people who are like minded, have that same desire and aspiration. The statistics show your socioeconomic condition is the average of the five people you spend most of your time with. And so, if that is true, then, and you want to go to the next level, you need to put yourself in that circle of people that you aspire to be. I think Nipsey Hussle said it best. He said, "Are you in a circle or are you in a cage?
Yep.
Are you in a circle with people who are want to aspire and see you do more? Or are you in a cage?" And many of us are in cages. And again, self-imposed. Like I can remember my mother saying, "Never think you're better than anybody else. Never think you're better than anybody else." So I kind of interpreted that or translated that to be, well, kind of you want to stay with your own kind. You want to, you know what I'm saying? And
Yep.
so much of our limitation is self-imposed. And I can remember my son saying something. He was traveling, he went in some restaurant and he noticed that the it was a fine restaurant, major city. They walked him past and took them all the way to the back. And like his friends were kind of upset about it. He knew what the deal was. This dude, he travels, he lives in between
Yeah.
Paris and New York. So I mean, he travels all over the world, right? And he was like, "Ma, I didn't, like I knew what they were doing, and I just don't, buy into that." And he said, "So I left a very big tip, and that was for them to understand I'm free, right?" So what they need to understand is you're limiting your opportunity based on your own limited view and perception of who you think people are. He said, "I don't have to buy into that or get mad because I'm free." And I thought, wow. Now, honey, if that had been me, I excuse me,
Hold up, honey.
right? And so I think that that we have to liberate ourselves, right? Like I didn't intentionally focus on Black women. Black women chose me.
Okay.
Are you with me?
Yeah.
Like wealthy you, my company doesn't say Black women. Black women chose me. And when they chose me, I leaned further into them, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I had did a pitch competition, and I had a gentleman tell me, "Oh, well, what you're trying to accomplish is like rolling a boulder up a hill." And I thought about it for a moment, and I thought exactly and so I had to shift to exactly what I espouse and tell everyone a wealthy you to a wealthy mindset. Right. Not only is it a boulder rolling up a hill, but the opportunity is better, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what you have to begin to, the bigger the problem, the greater the opportunity.
And so, what are like 2 or 3 tips for just beginning to build that wealthy mindset?
Oh, that's good. That's good. Well, the first thing I would say is that uh, you got to create your wealthy vision. So, what I want to encourage every woman who is feeling the way that they are or feel like they want to go to the next level, I want them to actually create what that next level looks like,
Mm-hmm.
right? Uh, the first thing that the Women in Wealthy You do is really create their personal financial statement. And that personal financial statement is where you take an accounting. How much do I own and how much do I owe? Because fundamentally, the shift that I want uh, women to make is to understand that the the a function of wealth, right, is your net worth. That's what you should be focused on increasing, not income. Income means absolutely nothing. It's just like a company. They can have a lot of sales, but if they don't manage it, their expenses, they can go out of business, right? The same thing holds true for you personally. So the scorecard or the measure of your success and your ability to build wealth really is making your decisions based on whether or not it's decreasing or increasing your net worth. I like to frame it this way, and a an author whose name doesn't come to mind right now, but put it this way. He said, really poor people think and manage their money day to day. Poor people think and manage their money week to week. Middle class people think and manage their money month to month. And if you think about it, that's how we're sold homes and cars, whether we can afford it. Affluent, year to year, they have a budget and understand where their resources are being allocated. And then rich people, decade to decade. The point I make that is that wealthy people think generation to generation.
Mm.
And so when you begin to think about what is that mindset is at each level, what do? You begin to think and make your decisions about the long-term implications of the impact that that decision right now is going to make. That's why it's important to make your wealthy vision, right? Because if that's not aligned to where you want to be, then you're able to make a better decision. And that's really fundamentally the wealth mindset, is the ability to think long term, to make your decisions based on the long term goal that you have in mind. But what I would say for many of us is that poverty mindset, that poor mentality, you could make multiple six figures and still have that. And we've had women in wealthy you who have had a poverty mindset, even though they were earning a lot of money.
Yeah.
And once they began to make that shift, understand that they have to turn that income into wealth, everything changes.
Yeah. And I agree with that. I mean, I know you talk about it, like, the whole thing about Black girl magic not translating into real wealth. I think that has a lot to do with it because there are all these Black women who, the statistics show that we're becoming, more college educated than our counterparts. We're, owning more businesses and we're, excelling and being entrepreneurs, but it's not translating. And I think that poverty mindset and that earner mindset is a huge part of that, again, we're just not taught. We're just taught to, this is what you got to do. It's like, it's all about earning. And dang, I'm just like upset because I'm just like, it frustrates me in so many different ways when we aren't given the knowledge to excel. And I feel like everything always goes back to slavery. It's just like, we were denied so many different things because just people thought that we weren't worthy. And then we've inherited that we weren't worthy of this knowledge. And we are.
Yeah, and internally we think we aren't worthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And so I think so much of that has to do with how we put so much value in our personal appearances, right? And that is wanting to be accepted. And I'm by no means saying that, like, I'm not frugal Fanny, me, by any stretch of the imagination, because I really feel like financial liberation really is when you can live for today and tomorrow.
Yeah.
When you know that you've deposited funds into your future that are going to be there when you get there, and that that you can spend joyfully because you've done that, right? So this is about putting things in order. Everything has a system, everything has an order. And in Wealthy You, we call that system mindset, strategy, execution. So to your point, we're starting with mindset,
Yeah.
because mindset is everything. Like, you can know exactly what to do, but if you have a poverty mindset, you're simply not going to do it,
Mm-hmm.
right? You're simply not going to do it. And so that's why we spend so much time working on mindset.
And I think
And
that,
then,
okay.
yeah, and then it's strategy, right? Okay, so now that I've shifted to this wealth mindset, what do I need to do? And
Mm-hmm.
so then it's really looking at what are the levers that you can, pull in order to accelerate your financial growth. And then you can know all of that and do absolutely nothing, because the next is implementation and execution. And that's when that community of accountability and support becomes so important. right?
Yeah.
Because, and that's what I learned and why we had so much growth. When we launched the Wealthy You community, even the women who had been in one on one coaching, when they got that community, they took off
Hmm.
because it was like they were in a little world of their own. And then they go back and then they're in their circle. And when they're talking about investments, their circle is like, what are you talking about? Right. So now you have this community that's always there, that's always talking about investments. Every Wednesday we have Wealthy You Wind Down, and we take I have my glass of whatever, and everyone else has their glass. So the interesting thing that is, it's like sort of like this virtual framework we're in allowed us to do this. I think that the fact that people are craving interaction in this whole COVID world, it allowed women to slow down and focus and pay attention. And so
Hmm.
that's what makes me so excited, is to see not only has the growth of the community, but also the growth of individual portfolios in the community have aligned with that as well. Certainly the markets, the performance has
Yeah.
a lot to do with that. But what I do know is that women are much more intentional about really achieving that financial liberation we are discussing. And that financial liberation really is freedom, right? The
Yep.
freedom, if I want to, you travel. So if I want to travel for a couple of weeks and not have to work while I'm on vacation, that's what wealth is about. The freedom to fully experience life. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, that's his quote. I won't liberate him from that, but I think he got it right.
Yeah. And I do feel like what you said before, this financial liberation or just liberation in general, whether it's financial wellness, whatever, and that's why I'm creating this wellness revolution, doesn't happen by yourself. It is
Oh
a
no.
collective situation. And I think that I love that Wealthy You is a community. And so people can get that community healing as well as that community support, because we can't do it alone. And we try and we try and we try and wonder why it ain't working.
Yes.
So how can I know you have a masterclass coming up this weekend?
Yeah. So we have a master class coming up this
I know it will be
weekend.
actually, I think it happened yesterday, but like I know
Yeah.
you're doing some other stuff. And are you doing master classes in the
Yeah.
future?
Yeah, so they can go to wealthyu.com. They can join me on our free Wealthy You community on Facebook. It's just bit.ly Wealthy You community, that bit.ly link with Wealthy You community. We also will have, if they listen to this, we're also going to have a bonus training coming. And so they can participate in that as well.
Okay.
And all they have to do is go to the Wealthy You community, or we'll put the link in the notes. So if they want to sign up for that, they can do that as well.
Perfect. I love you. I will stop running from you. Every time I talk to you, I get a little bit close to not running from you. I, it's a mindset thing, and it is something that,
Come on in, the water's fine. Come on and have a glass of wine with me on Wednesday, and then you'll be hooked.
yeah. I mean, I everything you said, and especially taking it to this form of liberation, just kind of opened my eyes further into, sis, what are you doing?
Yes.
You can't talk about freedom in other ways for other people and not for yourself. And so I'm gonna have to journal on this one a little
Amen.
bit. So we'll make sure to get all the different ways that they can connect with you in the show notes. At the end of every show, I love to ask, some quick fire questions. So whatever comes to mind, just answer the question and we'll roll with it. So the first question I always love to ask people is, what does living hella well mean to you?
Living hella well for me means the ability to do what I want when I want.
Yeah. Aisle or window?
Oh, definitely window.
What's always in your travel bag?
That's good. Well, it used to be a wine corkscrew, but now I've got all of those taken, the contraband. I said I'll never do that again. But now, my favorite travel toiletries. So I want exactly the stuff that I use at home in travel size.
Love that. When's the first time you knew you were Black?
Oh, very young, very young. You know, the greatest gift my parents gave me was to make me feel like it was cool to be the only little Black girl.
Oh, I love that.
And yeah, so I mean, they gave me such a confidence. And my father worked for the airline, so I got to travel a lot and I flew first class. So I didn't really know I was Black until I got to middle school. And I had not been in a school with all Black people. And the girls started talking about, oh, your hair is long, and who do you think you are? And I told them, honey, I'm from the South. I said, honey, let me tell you, it don't matter what color you are. If you was down in the South, you would be the N word, right? So that just did not compute to me. It's like,
Hmm.
what are you guys talking about? Are you crazy? Yeah, I mean, my mother grew up in Pineapple, Alabama, and you talking about Jim Crow. And so I'll never forget. Well, my first memory really is of my aunt pinching me because we had went down south and stopped at a little general store,
Hmm.
and we could not say a word. That's when I knew I was Black.
Yeah. And my last question is, this is all about creating a wellness revolution to get women of color out of survival mode. What advice would you give to your younger self to be someone who is thriving and not putting yourself on the back burner?
Oh, my younger self. I was always pretty radical, in different corporate
Not
environments,
shocking.
even. And so, but what I would give my the advice I would give my younger self is to not play into my emotions.
Yeah, that's a good one. You are goals, and you are goals that are attainable. And I can say that this is a new thought process because you've always been goals. But I'm like, ooh, she's goals that is attainable. And it's just the mindset situation, it's the mindset shift.
That's
And it,
it. You
yeah,
know, the most important thing I can tell you is that execution trumps everything.
yes.
Get out of your head, stop thinking it, and just do. I want to leave you with this because I think it's really, really important. And that is, you never lose. You either win or you learn.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Deborah Owens, for being here and helping us get to the reasoning and the root of why we need to be liberated financially now and that it's possible. I love you. And I hope to see you guys soon at the next episode of the Hello Well with Danielle podcast. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week. Ciao. Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.